Hi guys, Demonic Angel. Today I'm going to talk about some of the different, behaviors of ghosts. Just thought maybe somebody would like this. So, in commonality, really, it's funny to be a satanic witch and look back on popular culture and see that in a lot of ways that it really does match up. So one of the things that ghosts, dead people, spirits, they all do is they typically find a place in in a home, and that's away from the rest of the living people. The bathroom, the attic, the basement, the closet, to basically spend their time when you're not awake, or when you're awake, when it's basically daylight. Now that's not always true. A lot of them are conscious during the day, but as you know, the night brings out the hidden and the secret and the unreal. So that is, it also really charges their energy. So it's like during the day they're saving up this energy, and then the night, the moon really brings that out and makes the unreal real. So that's just how that is. They hide though, essentially, because they're trying to get energy to then express, to be physical. And it takes like a lot of time for them to gather that. Another thing is that they are bound by some physical ideas that we talk about. The doors, closet doors, bathroom doors, whatever, basements, they're gateways, they're portals, they're secret, and there are these openings, and so going from the door of the living to the dead, the real to the unreal, is what that is. So I do find on a lot of investigations that they hide in these sort of different areas away from them, like they're not in the living room. And if they are, for instance, I investigated a place where a woman spirit was, and she liked to hang out in a recliner in the living room. But during the day, she spent a lot of her time in a closet nearby. So that's why they really didn't notice her. But at night, hearing the rocking chair, the voices, television turning on and off, because she was just trying to live as if she was alive. So they're trying to gather this energy for that kind of stuff, and they have to do it kind of away from you. Now, another thing I'd like to mention is that they usually like the bathroom. There's all kinds of comments I can make on this, but the thing about that is water is a really good source of emitting EMF, and that really feeds them. So if you're going in the shower, or you're in the bathroom, there's a lot of mirrors, and mirrors are the best portals, really. Besides closets, really. And they're feeding off of the EMF from the water. Also, I find that the paranormal activity will get physical and real for even normal people when people are doing the dishes. When you have your back turned, when you're least expecting it, and they're feeding off of this water energy. It's why they mess with electronics, and especially the water, turning the water off and on, messing with the toilets. They're doing this to get the water flowing. Flowing water is a great source of energy. Now here's the thing that now I've seen with people in the shower. Now, when you're actually in the shower, the water is protecting you. Like, spirits can't actually touch you when you're in water because water is protecting you. But a lot of dead people who are perverted, or, you know, they're just going to have to watch you while you shower because they need this energy. And then you get out of the shower and you get scratches, you get attacked. These kinds of situations happen commonly around bathrooms because they've had that moment of feeding off of energy. And if the intentions come out after a feeding, and you see what that really is. So that's kind of like my take on why they do some of those types of things. And the coldness has to do with them draining your energy. So they're jumping into your consciousness. And that when you get your energy drained, it makes you feel cold because it sort of has these lasting effects that aren't specifically like instantaneous, like the paranormal. It slows your metabolism down after you get cold. You walk into cold, or you get cold. You get a slow metabolism, and you get some of these briefer types of headaches and stuff like that because it like, by draining you, it slows your metabolism, it slows your hormones down, everything like that. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying this is literally feeding off of you. It's feeding off, it needs, and so what is the effects on you? And in some ways, small amounts of course, us being fed off of is probably good for us, taking a little bit of that stagnant energy away, but too much of it is, well, it's going to cause you health problems and eventually insanity and, anything that can come from health problem complications. So they behave that way. Another thing that I've noticed with ghosts is that when they talk, it sounds like, even when I have heard them speak, like, and what it sounds like to normal people, it sounds like mumbling, but it sounds like it's right next to you or in the other room, and you can't quite make out what they're saying. And that's because even when people catch ghosts on their little paranormal devices, they're talking at a faster rate. They're not in our plane of existence. They are, because you're hearing them, but that's not where they're coming from. They're not coming from the physical realm. They're not. So in other words, it's not like you're speaking to me. This is a faster, muffled, distorted, and that all has to do with it coming from a different realm. And another thing is, like, people always ask me, hey, do ghosts notice each other? And my experience that I'd like to tell you is that they usually notice each other more than us. And that sounds weird, but I'm weird. They notice each other because they're on the same frequency, the same plane of existence. Okay? So that is, now, if they're completely engrossed in the way that they died, in a trauma, something like that, they're in denial, then they're not going to see either other dead people or living people. But they talk amongst themselves, and the funny thing is, they talk and they say, they'll say who they don't like. They have normal conversations, and of course, I can tune in and hear what they're, like the shit they're talking, and it's can be rather humorous or dark. Ranges the whole gamut of different types of experiences, but they do that. And then, as far as like, I think I've touched on this before, but you move into this house and like this woman who was getting attacked, scratches, and she felt choking. Was thinking that this was a demon. This was a guy who killed himself, and he thought that she was this girl who had left him, and then that anger and rejection inspired him to kill himself. And she looked pretty similar, but that's not really that's not what he saw. It was the energy. What they had in common was their sort of well, I would just say tendency towards passive aggressiveness, and then almost like moments of submission, but really caring about like a clean living space, the meticulous OCD. So what attracted this guy to her, and why he thought that was his ex, was the energy, the personality. So this is what he sees, if you get what I'm saying. So it's not like, so sometimes they don't see living people. Like they're not looking at you with eyes like you and I. It's energy feeling energy, and that's how this really is. There are situations where there are levels of them who understand what they really are, but that's pretty rare. And another thing that they're doing is they're practicing. So, how people go into a home and then they say the paranormal activity got worse? That's because you're newly dead and you don't know how to, if you've ever seen the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, and he's on the train and the guy says, you've just got to imagine really, really hard, and then it's going to happen in the physical plane. That's how that is. So they don't really like automatically understand how to manipulate their physical environment, how to manifest. So they have to learn. That sounds, of course, bizarre as always, but that's what they do. They're learning how to physically move something by projecting their will, their emotional stuff. So it's not always intentional, but their energy, the will that we always talk about, that's what carries that. And that's what makes that happen. With a lot of objects moving, it's just because they're angry. Now, sometimes it is to send a clear message, but the idea is the same, that it takes this kind of level of skill and to manipulate the environment. When ghosts become physically real, when normal people start seeing apparitions, that is a really powerful entity. That takes a lot to do. It really does. Because to recreate the way that you looked in life is like the equivalent of needing or having, your amount of coffee that you need, plus all this other, I guess that's the only way I can really put it, that that's what they've had to have for that kind of thing. And then when they manifest physically, they start to try to live as if they were alive. And there's a problem with that, because then they've got to find a living person to feed off of. And they're trying to, most of the time I find in that situation, they're trying to take over a living person to continue living. I mean, wouldn't you, if this is what we're talking about? You don't have a body anymore. So the best thing is to realize that you could take over somebody else's body and live again, rather than face the dissolution of ego, God, the light, whatever you want to call it. People, this is still people doing anything it takes to escape themselves. Denial. That's why understanding psychology is important to understanding the dead. And that's what I bring to the table here. Just my random thoughts on dead people for the day, or, you know, for sharing my experience and my thoughts on them. So if that's helpful, I hope so. I'll see you guys pretty soon.